Hi everybody, my name is Sarah and welcome back to Educating Adventures. Perched on a cliff near the Grand Canyon, you might find the largest bird in North America, the California condor. And this enormous bird is a type of vulture, and like all vultures, they have some very interesting things about them. But perhaps the most interesting thing about a California condor is that it was once extinct in the wild. Today, we're going to learn all about the history of the California condor and how scientists are doing everything they can to bring them back from the brink of extinction. Let's get into it. Like we said before, California condors are gigantic. They have the largest wingspan of any bird in North America. It can measure 9 feet across. It does have a cousin, the Andean condor, which lives in South America, that is slightly bigger than they are, but both California condors and Andean condors are considered to be New World vultures. Vultures are some of my favorite birds because they have some really unusual qualities, such as the fact that they are scavengers. Scavengers are animals that like to eat dead or decaying meat. Delicious. Vultures have very powerful acid in their stomach that allows them to eat that decaying meat and would actually make other carnivores sick if they tried to eat it. This is one of the reasons that vultures are so important in nature, because they serve as the cleanup crew. Without vultures, all of that dead and decaying meat would sit in the environment, bacteria and diseases would spread, and then we'd have a big problem on our hands. Like I said, I love vultures and I could stand here all day talking about them, but I think we better get to that very interesting thing that I mentioned before. In 1987, the California condor was considered to be extinct in the wild, which means none lived in the wild. They were only found living in zoos. Prior to that, when they were in the wild, they faced a couple threats, such as running into power lines, habitat loss, and pollution, particularly eating little pieces of plastic. That was not good for them. The biggest problem they faced, however, was lead poisoning. Lead gets into the environment kind of in one particular way that was especially harmful for California condors. When hunters would go out and hunt something like a deer, they would often use lead bullets. When the bullet hit the deer, it exploded into a bunch of teeny tiny little pieces. The hunters would go down, they would collect the meat from the deer, but they would leave the guts and everything else out in nature. That was a really easy meal for the condors. So condors would come down, they'd eat all that leftover meat, including the lead bullet pieces, and then they would get poisoned. Lead poisoning and those other threats were killing so many California condors across their range of California and Arizona and Mexico that scientists went out and they captured all the remaining condors. There were 22 of them that were captured and brought to the San Diego Zoo and the Los Angeles Zoo, both in California, to start captive breeding programs. Captive breeding programs allow animals, endangered animals, to have a safe space where they can live and breed so that their population size can grow and then eventually maybe be re-released out into the wild. In the wild, California condors have a pretty slow reproductive rate. They only have one chick every 2 years because it takes so much time and energy for them to raise a chick. At the zoos where they were being bred, they could reproduce every year because scientists and zookeepers could move eggs from one pair to another pair that maybe hadn't been able to produce an egg, so then they could raise that chick and the other parents could produce a new egg, and now we've got twice as many chicks. Zookeepers sometimes also raise the chicks, but they're very careful in how they do it because they don't want the California condors getting comfortable with people. The chicks, which would normally be fed by their parents, the ones that are raised by zookeepers, they are fed with a California condor puppet head to make sure that the chicks stay familiar with the California condor and not people. After many years of allowing the California condor population to grow in captivity, scientists started thinking about reintroducing them to the wild. To make sure that the environment was safe for the California condors, scientists actually released a few female Andean condors first to make sure that they could survive there, and they could. So scientists recaptured the Andean condors, and in 1991, they released the first California condors back into the wild in California. Those condors were successful, and in 1996, they released California condors up by the Grand Canyon in Arizona, and then eventually down in Mexico. Now that all these California condors had been released into the wild, scientists needed to make sure that they weren't going to face the same problems that they were facing originally. So they worked with local governments to put some laws and rules in place to protect the condors. In places where condors were re-released, there is a no lead bullet rule. They are not allowed to use lead bullets when hunting. And in addition to that, they encourage hunters to take their gut piles, all the parts of the animal that they hunted, out of the wilderness with them after they're done hunting. Some places, the hunters can even turn in their gut piles and get a raffle ticket, and they could win something like a helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon. So some pretty cool prizes. These opportunities allow hunters and people that live in California condor habitats to do their part in protecting the condors. All this incredible work that the scientists and conservationists did to protect the California condor seems to be working, because today there's more than 300 California condors flying, some even reproducing, in the wild. And in captivity, there are more than 200 California condors that either serve to teach people about protecting condors, or they're part of the breeding program. California condors are an incredible story of the power of human action and how we can all do our part to protect endangered species. And I really hope you guys enjoyed learning about this enormous, very interesting vulture. And if you'd like to learn even more and do quizzes, activities, projects, be sure to click the link in our bio to visit our website. We can't wait to see you guys at our next adventure. Bye!